we use recruiters, but even still there's weeks and interviews and all this stuff. So that's a big challenge. But I will say that, I mean, success wise, like we have to ruthlessly prioritize. And I think that's one of the things that we are very good at is saying of the million things on our plate, what is the absolute thing that has to happen?
All right, folks, welcome back to the High Voltage Business Builders podcast. I'm excited to geek out with another Star Wars fan today. We're going to talk about 3PL pricing. We're going to talk about metrics and moving product. I want to go over the pros and cons of that, but also just talk to this gentleman about his story as he's built up this company. So Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
So what I got to ask, man, what gave you what's the Star Wars thing all about? Like, how did you get into that? Like, what is it about it?
Been into Star Wars forever. Honestly, I think my parents were into it. I think I just like watched the movies as kids and everything. But I was also into Legos as kids and then got rid of them. And then when I got older, I started using Legos to reward myself. So basically, like every time we got a new client or every time something good happened, I would buy myself a Lego set. So
we use Legos out here as like a redneck alarm system because they just lay on the ground. The kids are everywhere. I have girls, but they love Legos and they build all the time and play with it. So
that's the difference in my Legos now is that they're all put together. They're all on shelves. They're very nicely displayed. Yeah, when I was a kid, they were all
over the place. Yeah, right. So dad steps on them. They're all over the place. I actually have an X-Wing over here somewhere that they made me earlier. It's sitting over here out of all Legos. So I geek out on that a little bit. So like I was telling you, we loved it so much. We part of the movie theater we built for our house so we could watch and have that experience. I just enjoy my girls have got into it. In fact, a few years ago, we got sick over Christmas and had nothing to do for a week and had to cancel Christmas and put it off. So everybody was sick on the couches running 100 and something degree temperatures. And it was the first time about 4 years ago. And so we put everybody on the couch and we did Star Wars marathon. They were all old enough at that point to watch it. And then they've kind of geeked out on it ever since then. And now it's been The Mandalorian and they love that. And that's been fun too. But I love to meet a fellow Star Wars, excuse me. I was going to cross that over. My dad loves Star Trek. We always get this. He's a Star Trek geek. And I always get that crossed over. But obviously you've been in business and building for a while. What got you into the business? Like, how did you get started in what you're doing?
Yeah, so I came into Georgia Tech in 2015 and went into a big WMS company. So Manhattan Associates is a supplier of warehouse management technology to a lot of tier one enterprise retailers. And so got a huge amount of experience working with warehouse software and supply chains in general. And honestly, I'm a huge nerd about warehouses. It's beautiful to see a warehouse operating, and especially when you throw in robotics and automation, and like, it's just really cool.
Yeah.
So I've continued to want to work in that. And then about 3 years ago, started my company because we saw a better way to do something. But yeah, I've been really into entrepreneurship my whole life. My parents are entrepreneurs. They've owned a residential construction company for 40 plus years and grew up around the dinner table. We'd be having business conversations and I'd be overhearing them talk about deals. And like, I don't think even consciously at the time, I realized I was absorbing it. I was very much learning from them. And then even starting in about high school, I had a side business where I was building websites and marketing collateral and things like that for real estate agents. So through some of my parents' connections, got connected with some real estate agents that I then built websites for. And yeah, so I've just kind of always dabbled and always wanted to do something on my own and taught myself to code right out of school. And then, yeah, just kind of got into it and learning something every day. So
yeah, teaching myself how to code was one of the things I did as well. And I resonate with that because I'm 47. And when the internet was coming online, no one was teaching anybody how to do any of that. No one really knew how to do it. It was all book learning or on the job or just like after hours stuff. So I did it as a means to an end. He may have done it a little bit that way too, but that's a cool story and I appreciate that. I resonate with it. But one thing I didn't have and you did, and this is cool, and I appreciate it now as I hear you say it, is around my dinner table when I was a kid, that's not what we talked about. That is not how my life was. Blue collar dad didn't really talk a whole lot. Business and finances were something we didn't talk about. And as people probably heard me say before, money in our house was a 4-letter word. You didn't talk about money because you disrespect dad, right? And so we didn't do that. But in my house now, that's a topic almost every day in our household and conversations. Are you a family man? Do you have kids? Do you also instill those same conversation values into your family?
Don't have kids yet. Honestly, the business is my kid. So I have a long-term girlfriend. We've been together for 5 years almost, but who knows what'll happen down the road. But yeah, business is all that I focus on right now. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, well, how are you in your personal life? And my response was, there's a personal life around your business?
Podcasts are my personal life, Neil.
There you go. This is what I do for fun.
This is what you do for fun. Well, that's cool. I mean, if you've got time to do it, that's where energy and attention can be focused. Absolutely. I got a later start in life, so kids and family have become a later part of my focus now. After in my 30s, I got into that aspect of it. So I married young, hint, hint, and she's 7 years younger than me, which makes it a little easier to keep up as I've gotten older in this. But So you're focused on the warehouse and logistics and supply chain. How did you get in like warehousing and stuff? Obviously you took a track through corporate, but what made you decide to leap out, take the, jump of faith or leap of faith as some call it, and decide this is something you really wanted to go pursue on your own?
So I'll say there wasn't like one aha moment of any stretch. It was a very long progression to get to this point. It really started in 2019 when I left my last full-time consulting role and started doing contract software development. So I was I'll call it very naive engineer and left her job and said, oh, I can build a product. People will buy it. It'll be great. Right. Quickly realized that's just not how it works, but I had bills to pay. So, okay, how can I get revenue? Let's start building for other people. And I luckily found a couple of big clients and was building applications and websites. But I always knew I wanted to do product. And so I started attending a accelerator program that's connected with Georgia Tech, actually. Yep. It's called ATDC, the Advanced Technology Development Center. And they have a bunch of just kind of continuing education classes, is maybe the way I'd say, around entrepreneurship. And that's where I got a lot into lean startup. And they introduced me to authors like Steve Blank and Eric Ries and some of these like just amazing books. So I started consuming just a huge amount because I'd had this entrepreneurship in me, but I'd never done a software product-based company. So I really said, let's take the opportunity while I'm coding for other people, while I have flexibility. That was kind of a key. I could take coffee meetings at 3 p.m. and I could do the things I needed to progress the product, even though I was still earning revenue in this other way. So, but these classes and learning and just kind of getting into it. And so then that developed into true customer discovery, which is talking and interviewing folks and trying to identify a problem, and was just very methodical about, I knew I wanted to do supply chain. I actually blame my co-founder for that. So we've been friends, her name's Anya. We've been friends for a long time. And 3 or 4 years ago, I pitched her an awful idea. And she's the one who said, look, you've done all this in supply chain. You should really look more at supply chain. So that was the into supply chain. But then, it was very intentional. I wanted to do products. Let's figure out how to do that. Let's find resources. I'm always one to take up resources that people offer. So many people will offer, I'll connect with people. And I surprise people by always saying, yes, please do. And I will have that next conversation. And it's amazing how often you'll get connected with the random person that ends up introducing you to this. And I mean, our investors were, you're not going to believe me, but a 5th degree connection. Right. Girl I went to college with, her dad worked with a guy, and it's all these
whose cousin was a second guy. I've repeatedly said that, and I'll say it again. It's who you know that gets you there and what you know that keeps you there. So while you might be introduced, if you can't obviously make something complex simple and explain it to people who don't know you, then you won't build that know, like, and trust relationship with someone who's 5 levels deep to the second cousin twice removed from this person over here who's like, hey, they might be interested in that. And the network is net worth, right? As you've come to understand and build up, right?
Yeah, well, it's so weird because honestly, I don't feel like I have a great network. Now, I can outwardly acknowledge that I do. I mean, I've spent a lot of time building and cultivating.
Come on, I take that as an insult. Seriously.
Well, no, it's just, I'm more talking about maybe like the imposter syndrome side of it, right? Of like I feel like so many people get hung up on like, how do I network? I don't know anybody, right? That was even I sat back and said, I don't know anybody. But just literally going out to events and like going to Georgia Tech has alumni brewery events that I would go to. And there's a supply chain organization here in Atlanta that we would attend event. And like, it feels very difficult to get started, but you just like put one foot in front of the other and go talk. But even still doing all the work I've done, I don't sit back and be like, oh, I have this massive network of all these people. And like, but I will sit back sometimes and say, okay, I have a lot of folks that I can tap.
And you put the energy and effort into it, but why the drive? Where does that come from? Like how, because this is something that you can't, I understand it because I naturally am inclined to it. Now, if you look at my parents, no disrespect whatsoever, my dad stayed with the same company for 29 years. What he instilled in me was a work ethic and tenacity and fortitude in the face of things that were challenging and difficult. While he provided and was great, we just didn't have anything we wanted. We had everything we needed. And I know that want and need are somewhat very different, but as a kid, you don't understand the differences in it. And we don't understand later in life what want and need actually is. Most of the time we're screwed up in that way. But the end result was, I think I learned some work ethic in that to some degree, but the person that I've become is not the person they are. And it must have just been from an environmental thing. What do you think about that? Like, where did you get your grit and tenacity and drive that clearly pushes you when other people don't have that?
It's a really great question, actually. And I do have to attribute some of that to upbringing, parents, learning entrepreneurship and that stuff early on. But I really think of it as it's related to time. That's my biggest thing is I look at entrepreneurship as a way to gain time in the future because to your exact point, I mean, amazing that people can work at a company for 30 plus years. And if that's happiness to them, that's incredible. But unfortunately, that's not happiness to me. I've discovered that is just not the path that I want to take. And so I look at this as an opportunity to find something down the road where I can actually just pursue the passions that I want to. I think that's a difficult thing to achieve sometimes if you just climb the corporate ladder. So versus I'm also loving what I'm doing now. That's the other crazy thing. Like I get to have this potential future where I have time that's on my side, but then also I get to walk to our office every day because I got to decide that the office was near my apartment and I'm in a really cool building and all these things. So it's like, it's almost the best of both worlds. You get to have an incredible experience. Like starting this company has been the best thing I've ever done for myself. Like I'm so much more outgoing now, even like I was at a birthday party recently and actually could talk to people. I used to be a horrible introvert and like I would have social anxiety and like I just
have to get out of your shell. Programmer MO though, right? If people today you sort of see you like in a dark room huddled behind a screen, you almost look nefarious to some degree. Like what's he doing on that computer? But that's not you. I mean, your whole body type ambiance is not there, which is probably why you're not a programmer much anymore. I suspect you've got a whole team of people, right?
I wish I got to code more than I do. I actually was saying that to a customer I was talking to just earlier today that I just don't get to code as much as I want. But yeah, it's the kind of thing, I love the creative side of it. Really, to me, coding is a creative outlet. You get to start with a blank screen and build anything, really. And like, it's just really fun from that perspective. But yeah, I also find business fascinating. I mean, like I watched Shark Tank from a young age and like just always found it so interesting how to put the pieces together. Make it work, make it profitable, find the team. Like, yeah, just it's really
like the Legos. I bet you probably like puzzles too. You're probably one of those weird guys. You like puzzles, don't you?
I love puzzles and everything. I feel like everything in my life breaks down to a puzzle. That's really it. Even like teaching somebody, I really enjoy teaching because it's a puzzle to me of how do I take this complicated concept and communicate it to somebody in such a way that they get it.
I so resonate with that, dude. I feel, there's a lot of camaraderie in that. I don't like puzzles though, by the way. I believe they're paved, the way to hell is paved with puzzles. Frankly, I hate
We'll have to unpack that.
My wife loves puzzles and that is her deal. For me, it's just like, that's too confining. Like, there's got to be another way. Like I see the picture, I see the way things go, and I'm more interested in the way the picture was created and developed, not the actual execution of the picture. And that's just personality type. And what it gets down to, I think, that so many people don't really understand their personality type. Maybe they're a little confused. Maybe they're a little too easily influenced by others, or they go follow too many people and get too convoluted with this hopium mindset mentality and stuff and don't actually get down to the basic fundamentals of who they are and how to execute things. And clearly you figured that out, but I suspect it's not all just rose blossoms and golden paved roads to the result, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of, there's a lot of personal energy, I'd say, that goes into doing anything on your own, even if that's just a solopreneur kind of running your own thing. But it is, I don't think that a lot of people understand the just emotional and physical, mental toll that it can take on you. Like just specifically, I get more sick now than I ever used to. Just little colds and nothing significant, but it's like, it's a literal thing that you can measure now that I get colds 5 or 6 times a year and I never used to. And I think that's just because I'm tired and I'm working all the time and I'm drained and like I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep each night. And my therapist tells me that's not a good idea, but that's unfortunately the stage that we're at.
Well, remind me, I need to send you a study on that. I literally just read this the other day and it was about sleep study and the value of its ability for your brain to detox, not just from mental stress, et cetera, or putting memories into long-term memories, et cetera, but like, or defragging your brain as some have called it. But there's literally a detoxification, a physical aspect of your body that goes with it. It helps with your mental health and talks about the way that it is actually matched up with low sleep deprivation or no deprivation, no sleep, and Alzheimer's and other things that are tied to that because of the chemical and the buildup in your brain. So I'm going to send that to you because you need to get at least 6 hours of sleep, bro. I find that tough too, right? I totally do. And I get it. If I can get a good solid 6, I'm feeling pretty strong.
It's not bad. Yeah. But I do, we're in this phase where I describe it as a lot of growing pains and like demand is growing faster than we can grow people. And so that's why we're all having to work a lot. So yes, I hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I have a feeling there's not going to be that, right? It's just like the milestone continually moves. Like,
but our personality types are those kind of, we balance between, we understand being on the business and being in it. And we vacillate. Do we not?
Sure. No. You do. I feel like the other piece is like, I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. So like, even if we're having a real challenge in the business, being able to take a minute and just kind of disconnect from that in some ways.
Well, it's hard. It's hard.
It's very difficult, but even like trying to just like go to the pool for a couple hours, right? And not bring a laptop, not bring the phone, and like that kind of stuff.
You have to give yourself permission. Like I learned this a while ago, and it's very difficult to do, and I still have to do it. It's like I have to give myself permission to do those things, and like time block them has been a big component of that. For those who are not familiar with time blocking, it's like you've got a calendar, you got a schedule, like block time in even for just an hour for yourself. And it could just be get away from my desk, leave my phone and go away from it for an hour. Like, or just I'm going to go to the pool, or I'm going to go out with my family, or I'm going to intentionally go play a game with the kids, or wherever you are, I'm going to walk out in the office and go around the block and take a break and sit in Starbucks or whatever. I think that's where you and I chatted the other day. But just like time block that thing. It's so hard to pull and just give yourself that permission.
Exactly that though.
Dude, I
have even like down to I have a dinner block on my calendar each night.
Well, now that's a little anal retentive. I'm gonna call you out on that one, dude.
I don't necessarily follow it every night. It's more of a reminder for me to take that time off, to stop work. I try and stop work at like 6 or 7, and then I'm usually back on at 9. But like at least take a couple blocks, and like my girlfriend will cook dinner, and we'll have like some time that's not working. So.
That's awesome. You got to remember to eat, though. It's always important.
I do forget lunch sometimes.
Well, I happen to do that too, actually. And I just call it fasting, which is actually pretty good for you too, by the way. And I'm actually breaking my fast right now with my buttered coffee, by the way.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. But I mean, you obviously understand, and this is kind of a fun conversation because I don't always get to speak with people who are so closely aligned to the way I do things and think of things.
Yeah.
Not always are they as far ahead in the thought process as you've gotten. And I think that's probably because you've pushed a hard road. I pushed a hard road. I failed a lot. In the things that I've done. Where is it you see yourself being most successful right now? And where do you see your biggest challenges?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that there's a lot of components of the business that are extremely successful. And I will also say that there's some real learnings that I've had. And I will say that pairing the people and resources with the need of the company has been one of the biggest learnings for me. Yeah. So I have had folks work under me before, but this is the first time that I'm really directly hiring people. And we've gotten some incredible folks on the team. Like the team we're building is just an amazing set of people, dedicated and hardworking. But it's more around the company needs X, and then going to find that person to then fill that. And there's a multiple month delay. I mean, we use recruiters, but even still, there's weeks and interviews and all this stuff. So that's a big challenge. But I will say that, I mean, success-wise, like we have to ruthlessly prioritize. And I think that's one of the things that we are very good at, is saying of the million things on our plate, what is the absolute thing that has to happen? And we do that frequently. So even just today, I was meeting with a guy who's leading one of our big projects right now. And we determined that I needed to step in on something next week just for sheer capacity reasons. And it's those types of things that just constantly reviewing, okay, what is the biggest priority right now? What resources do we have? What do we need to pair that with? I think that's a real, it's difficult, right? Because you end up having to give up doing things you want to do. I can't tell you how many bugs we have in our system that are tiny little things that nobody ever notices, but I notice it, but we can't fix it because it's low priority. We have bigger things to get. And again, if it's only me noticing it, then that's fine. But like, it just irks me. And that's what's really difficult for people. You want to go do the fun stuff. You want to, you know, if you're a brand and you want to be doing Instagram and photo shoots and these kind of things, but like sometimes you have to really say, you know, where is my energy best spent? So company name actually is a great story of that. It came from a $12 domain. We still pay $12 a year for our domain. And I spent a couple of days at the very beginning trying to think of a name and quickly said, this is B2B enterprise SaaS. No one is going to share. Yeah. Like, it's not like you're going to decide this on a name. No, if I've been doing a clothing brand or an Amazon brand or something, that's entirely different. Right? But just as an example, prioritize what you really have to. I think that's something we've gotten.
It is. You can start up a brand in 10 minutes, no one's ever heard of, and go out to market and validate the market data and then the product data after. And that's what we tell so many people to remind themselves and move through speed of implementation, however imperfectly. And you'll figure out where that comes into play. And you can brand literally anything. I mean, there are brands of things out. I mean, who would have thought Prada is about purses, right? It's like you just, it has to create the value. But with your side creating value on the warehouse and logistics and optimization side, I think it's important to those who are listening on this for Amazon DTC or product logistics movement that you understand what he's created here at Porter Logic is a software that allows you a drag and drop based graphical interface to connect your software, Amazon, DTC, Shopify, et cetera, warehouse management supplies, EDI, if I'm not mistaken, into basically your warehouses, your back end, your suppliers. If they don't have systems, you can now tie them into this system for more just-in-time and real logistical tracking and movement of products. Did I get that right?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent summary. And like often the way we think about it is you need a system to run your supply chain, but your specific brand or your specific product may have nuances that don't fit well in an out of the box system. So instead of giving you, here's what inventory management looks like, fit into it, we have this platform that's hyper flexible and very configurable and very quick to tailor to a particular company's needs. So yes, if you ship on Shopify, if you ship on Amazon, if you have 3PLs that you use, or if you do in-house warehousing, whatever your specific makeup is, we'll tailor the system to you. And yes, we do it all drag and drop. So there's no code. It's quick. It's cheaper, all that.
You guys have, those who are listening, clients of ours or whatever, or if you've used any of the graphical tools and stuff that we use or developed, you're going to know that it's a similar kind of format to making it really simple to move. And if you're into secondary supply chains, like you've got two manufacturers or multiple manufacturers where you're bundling or creating additional value points for your products and then isolating them to a 3PL before you send them to Amazon, supply chain logistics can sometimes be a manual aspect. This might help you, especially at those of you in growth and scale who are moving secondary and tertiary suppliers in. When that gets more convoluted or you want to create additional value in bundling, this can be a way to make it a lot easier for you to track and manage. I was poking around your website earlier and looking at the demo and stuff to get into some ideas about how valuable that would be for those of the folks who are listening to this on one side or another who are growing 1 million, 5 million, 30 million plus in sales. Logistics time and just-in-time management of your product inventory is very critical. It's one of the dashboard metrics that we should all be monitoring, right?
No, that's you're doing a great job summarizing it. I appreciate it. Because we really find if you're just starting out, you're probably doing a lot in Excel or spreadsheets and Google Sheets, and that's excellent when you're first there, right? If you have one inventory point, if you're just shipping on Amazon, then you download a few things in Excel and go. To your point earlier about iterations and being quick and testing, somebody once told me Excel is like the greatest low code tool ever. And it's a weird way to think about it, but it really is. You can use spreadsheets to do a lot, but you get to a point that breaks down. You add your third warehouse, you add your secondary suppliers, your network just starts growing. And often if you are growing, you're growing exponentially, right? You're not going to be adding these if you aren't seeing a bigger and bigger opportunity. So you don't have time almost to catch up. I mean, and especially you look at some of these legacy WMS kind of solution providers, it's 12 plus months to implement these systems. And that's just not feasible for these types of digitally native companies that need speed and agility. So
that's just 5 years ago, man. I mean, how much has changed? AI systems, infrastructure, the ability for hyper growth. I made a post on Facebook the other day, which really brought out all the weak minds. I said, we entered an age where the 1 to 2 person companies and 10 million ARR is real now. And people are like, well, what are the businesses? What, tell me if that's true. And I'm like, you're out, man. You have no idea how fast we're moving and how quickly in 10 years this has changed. You can only to imagine where the next 5 years is going to go at the level. I assume AI is involved in what you're doing.
We honestly don't do a ton with AI now, although it's on our product roadmap. So we started actually with just saying, let's solve the bare bones of what is really needed. Let's build the underlying infrastructure. Let's build this platform. Now, actually, I was talking to one of our lead engineers the other day, and we were talking about, okay, how does AI start layering in? How can we start adding some of those components? Honestly, a lot of what we're solving for companies is kind of the unsexy, gritty. You have this massive inventory spreadsheet, and you just need something that can replace that, but you can't find an inventory management system that fits your nuance. We're implementing a food brand right now, and they have a lot of expiration data and shelf life and temperature zones, and they have allergens. They can't put nuts and things together. So there's these nuances that come up that are dependent on your specific business, right? You might have apparel and you might need to do kitting, to your point, or cosmetics, and you may need to be able to put something together. So often we're helping companies that are doing some kind of value add, whether that's just in your warehouse, maybe that's just price tagging or gift wrapping or things like that, or more solid manufacturing, actually, of putting the products all together, assembling raw components. Often what we help there really is optimizing that raw material, right? That's one of the main metrics that we hear people talk about is we want to minimize waste. If you're talking food, or even if you're talking, we have a company we're talking to that does building construction material, and they want to minimize the amount of these sheets of plastic that they cut. So it's the type of thing that you really want to maximize how much you're putting in. And that's where then a platform that can flex exactly to what you need can really fit. You don't have all these workarounds. You don't have all these spreadsheets. It's spreadsheet hell. That's what we often help with customers. So
it's getting beyond spreadsheet hell. And I'm used to joking that some of these enterprises, even up in IBM, when I was there for a while, we use spreadsheets for so many things. It's become everywhere. For so much component of that. We started out in spreadsheets and moved ours all into dashboard-based systems now.
There's the exact trajectory, right? Started in a spreadsheet because it's great, it's quick, it's fast. But then when you need to move into something else, grab a system that works.
And you just made me think of 2 contacts I need to put you in touch with. One in particular.
Oh, sure.
On the food side just reminded me. So I will make that introduction to you because there you go. Network, right? Well, look,
Appreciate
man,
it.
You loved your energy today. Loved the information you brought. Guys, go over to porterlogic.com and check out what Jonathan is doing and his team. If you're into anything on any scale and size and growth and connectivity and moving through the next steps of business growing, logistics, just in time, supply chain, optimizing your infrastructure and your costs are going to be very important. These guys are the ones you want to talk to when time comes to get there, man. Hey, last question. Yeah. Anything you didn't ask you that you want to tell people about today or that you want to leave them with?
I think that the one thing that I love to leave people with, so many people don't understand what goes on behind clicking buy on a website. And I just love in some ways that people are paying more attention to supply chain now, because people get mad when a box doesn't show up in 2 days, and you don't realize that 18 people and 12 trucks and a boat and a train have touched that box just to get there. Right. And it's fascinating, right? And I love to leave that with people of like, just think about what happens to that box. How did that label get on that box, right? You see all the labels that Amazon puts all over it. Like, where did that come from? Like, and it's just really interesting to kind of peel back that onion. So.
Yeah, no, it really has changed so much. And there's so much in movement now, and e-commerce being such an exponential growth in the last 3 to 5 years. Can only imagine where your growth is going to go and where the whole industry is really moving. So it's been a great conversation, man. Thanks so much for coming on with me today.
Yeah, loved it. Really enjoyed chatting. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, guys, go over, like, share, comment, love, follow, engage, ask questions. Go to porterlogic.com. Check out what Jonathan and his team is doing over there. If you like Star Wars, give them a shout. Guys, thank you so much. Help me beat big tech by getting this out and letting everybody hear this message today. Thanks for joining the High Voltage Business Builders podcast.